Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Earlier this year, State of the State, the governor talked about some additional detail on our casino gaming proposal. We've been meeting with stakeholders and generally reviewing the many complex issues in casino gaming. Fortunately, other states have been through this before, so we've learned a lot. Among the people that we've been talking to are the representatives that are here with us today. We have Steve Aquario with the New York State Association of Counties. Obviously, localities have a very big interest in this. Heather Bruschetti is here from the Business Council of New York, and Mario Salento from the AFL-CIO. We're going to start this morning with a presentation by the governor on casino gaming. We'll hear from our other participants, and then we'll be open for questions.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Howard Glazer very much for all the work that he's been doing on this proposal. This is a complicated undertaking. A number of states have undertaken casino gaming with greater or less success. So there's a lot to learn from, but it's come a long way, and I think it has great potential for the state. I'd like to thank also our guests, Heather Bruschetti, Mario Salento, Steve Aquario, for their help and consultation, for being here today. And let me walk you through the proposal now, and then we'll take it from there. We're talking about resort gaming destinations, which we believe have a significant economic development potential for regional economic development and tourism. Many of us were at a tourism summit yesterday where we witnessed firsthand the infrastructure that is in this state around tourism, the industry that this state has developed around tourism. And this proposal fits right into yesterday's summit. We believe this could be a great regional asset and engine to actually spur additional tourism. Tourism itself is the fifth largest industry in the state, employs 700,000 people, $57 billion in spending, drives $7 billion in revenue overall. Resort destinations with gaming can supercharge an economic development enterprise. We've seen that before. New Jersey, 35,000 direct jobs, supporting 100,000 according to a Rutgers study. Connecticut, 14,000 direct jobs. Pennsylvania, 16,000 direct jobs. Those are significant numbers, and they would be a significant impact, especially in upstate New York. The numbers for past resorts, like the ones we're talking about, are staggering. Foxwoods, 8,200 jobs. It's a massive mega complex. Resorts World, which is the Genting Racino, 1,700 jobs in Queens. There's also a significant impact on small business. Casinos spend an average of about $2.3 billion annually to 2,000 independent vendors, and we would expect the same type of phenomenon in New York. Now, people want to say, well, I'm for or against gaming, and that's where this conversation normally starts. Are you pro-gaming or anti-gaming? I would suggest that that is the wrong question. It's not gaming or no gaming. New York State is in the gaming business. So let's frame the question properly, and let's not deny the reality of the situation. There is gaming in the state of New York. There are 17 casinos/racinos. We've had the discussion before that a racino, especially today, is basically a casino. The racinos were created to get around, frankly, the existing state law, and they were in many ways created as a loophole, but for all intensive purposes, they are a casino. And there are 17 casinos and racinos in New York, 29,000 electronic gaming devices, and they are all across the state. And as we've said, the racinos have been advertised as casinos. And you look at those logos, the word is casino. The word is not racino. And they're all across the state. When you also put on top of that, that we are surrounded by casinos in our neighboring states. So it's not a question of should we have gaming or should we not have gaming. We have gaming. The question really is, should we recognize the reality of our situation and fully participate in casinos and gaming and actually regulate it intelligently and tie it into our overall tourism efforts. 99% of New Yorkers are within 99 miles of a casino or a Racino. So it's not gaming or not gaming. 99 miles is a day trip, it's an overnight trip, and it is here, and it's within 99 miles of almost every New Yorker already. What we're talking about in terms of our proposed gaming plan really puts together several concepts. It's tourism, as we've discussed, it's economic development, and it's funding for education relief and tax relief. The main questions: where will they be located? How do you evaluate them? What will happen with Indian gaming? What's the revenue distribution? What's the usage? And how do we make the selection? Where will they be located? We are proposing 3 projects out of 6 regions in the state. You can see the county formulation for regions. Some of those regions are dictated by the current Indian gaming pacts that we have that have established regions, but we break the state into 6 upstate regions, and we're proposing 3 out of the 6. Now, this gets very complicated very quickly because it runs into the question of Indian gaming. We will honor Indian gaming compacts that are in quote-unquote good standing. What does good standing mean? It means the contract is being honored by both sides and the contract is in force and is in effect. If we are not in good standing with a region that has Indian gaming, we will open that region to commercial gaming. We have discussions underway now with several tribes in terms of whether or not they are in good standing. Let's start with Western New York, the green region there. The Senecas and the state have had an ongoing dispute for many, many years. The Senecas have contractual rights to gaming in Western New York. That region goes as far east as Rochester. So it's a very large region. The Senecas have not paid pursuant to the contract for many, many years. The state is owed roughly in excess of $500 million. They have not paid the local share of revenues. The matter has been in litigation. It's currently in arbitration. That is, we have been speaking with the Senecas on a regular basis. We have been in negotiation with the Senecas for many, many years. And that is an ongoing situation. That is not currently a contract that is in good standing. We could resolve the matters, and if the matters were resolved, we would then honor the contract, but right now the contract is not in good standing. Moving east, the Oneida tribe has casino gaming in their resort, the Turning Stone Resort. They do not have a revenue sharing agreement with the state, and they do not have an exclusivity agreement with the state. So we could proceed and put commercial gaming in that region. It would not violate any compact that we have for exclusivity. We are speaking with the Oneidas about the potential of their acquiring exclusivity from the state, and in effect buying the rights, if you will, to that region. Again, there are a number of disputes that have been going on with the Oneidas dealing with land claims with the surrounding counties. Many of these issues get bundled together. We've had ongoing conversations. If we were to arrive at a resolution with the Oneidas, and if they acquired exclusivity, that would be a resolution to that region. But right now, there is no exclusivity, so we are anticipating bidding that region. Northern New York are the St. Regis Mohawks. There is also an exclusivity agreement there for the region as described. That is not a contract that is in good standing. There is also an ongoing dispute that has been going on for years. We could theoretically resolve that matter, in which case that we would honor the contract, but that is not a contract that is currently in good standing. So those are 3 regions across the state. Under our proposal, if we have no resolution with any of the 3 tribes, you'd be competing 3 out of 6 regions, right? 3 possible projects out of 6. Theoretically, we could resolve amicably a matter with the Senecas and the Mohawks and come to a situation with the Oneidas where they would actually have exclusivity in their region. In that case, there would be 3 proposals out of 3 remaining regions. We won't know until we have the conclusion of the discussions with the tribes, or the legislation is actually ready to move forward, which would be in a matter of weeks. What are the evaluation of criteria? Primarily, number of jobs created, the amount of capital investment. We anticipate that the range could be $250 to $500 million for a project as an initial minimum investment. The amount of revenue to the state and localities by that proposal. Local support is important to us. It's important that the local community supports the project. The amount of the initial franchise fee that the project offers, and the vision for development and integration with the rest of the regional tourism. Again, going back to yesterday, we see these as engines of economic activity in the tourism sector, working with those other agencies and enterprises that are now ongoing in that region. So we believe there's great potential if somebody brings a vision on using that project to actually enhance and complement what's already going on in that region, which in many of the regions of the state is significant. Secondary evaluation criteria: full financing available. Can they actually finance their plan? Is it a comprehensive development approach? Again, going back to how does it fit in with tourism writ large in that region? Experience in the gaming development. Speed in construction: how fast can you start? How fast can you finish? Integrity and ethics review, which will be an important part of this. Workforce development: do you have labor agreements, which we think are beneficial and would actually expedite construction? Environmental sensitivity of the project, and proposal solutions for addressing any problem gambling. Selection is relative and absolute, meaning in each region you would have one project selected. It would be the best project for that region. If there was only one project submitted, there would still have to be minimum criteria that are met: qualifications, investment, etc. So it's both relative and absolute. Recipients of the revenue distribution: the state, the host locality, community, and counties in the region. Meaning it's not just the county that would happen to host the facility, but all the counties in that region would share in the revenue by our proposal. Uses of the revenue distribution: state education aid, which would be above the state annual formula. It wouldn't be funds that the state uses to pay for education. It would be above and beyond the formula that we have been using. Property tax relief and reimbursement for local costs in the case of the host community. Revenue distribution: 10% for the host community, approximately. Remember, the host community is also providing services, police, fire, so there's a cost to the host community, and the host community has a right to be reimbursed. 10% for the other counties in that region, 80% for the state. If the referendum passes, the counties that are within the Indian gaming region would share in the revenue, meaning if we come to an amicable resolution with the Senecas in Western New York, right now the counties do not receive any revenue from the Seneca Gaming Compact. There are Niagara Falls, Erie County, but by and large, the counties in the affected area do not receive any funding. Under this proposal, if we made an agreement with the Senecas and the referendum passes, the counties that are in Western New York would now share proportionately in the revenue once the referendum becomes a reality. Same with the Oneidas, and same in the North Country with the Mohawks. Winning projects would be given a 5-year exclusive period with no additional casinos. This was an issue about New York City. We believe there's a market being created in upstate New York because there's no casino in New York City. And to keep that competitive advantage, we would say there would be no additional casinos for a period of 5 years. Racinos could compete. Some could argue that they're in good shape for the competition since they already have local community ties. They already made a local investment. All contracts with horse tracks would be honored. Selection process would be primarily independent. Independent selection committee. People would be appointed to the committee temporarily just for the purposes of selection. Once the selection is over, they would go back to doing whatever they were doing. We're looking for real estate and finance experts. The panel would pick a financial advisor, which would do the actual evaluation of the financial benefits of each project. This will get very confusing very fast on weighing the financial benefits of a particular project, so we're going to need expertise in the area. That expertise will be selected by the panel. The legislature will not be involved in the selection, and we do not want a politically determined outcome. This year, we would pass the second passage of the amendment and the enabling legislation, and it would be on the ballot this November. The status is, this is a proposal that has been in discussion for a number of months. We've been speaking with many of the stakeholders around this proposal. The proposal has been refined over the months from where we started in conversations with those stakeholders, and we appreciate that. I've had a number of conversations, as you know, with the legislative leaders. They are proceeding. I would use my favorite term, cautiously optimistic, that this matter could be completed by the end of the session. Questions?
About your talks with the Senecas, Mohawks, and Oneidas? And if not, are you concerned that private entities would not want to locate a casino near an existing Indian casino?
Am I optimistic about my, well, they're all different, right? The Senecas, the Oneidas, the Mohawks are all different situations. So there is no, they're very individual relationships and their individual situations. So there's no characterization of all three. I would say with the Senecas, these are, you would need to be dubious about the potential outcome with the Senecas just because it has gone on for so many years. We're probably over a decade in dispute with the Senecas. And there have been dozens of attempts to come to an amicable resolution. So I would say dubious, but I'm working diligently with the Senecas. A number of conversations. I've had a number of conversations over the past few weeks. Oneidas, I would be less dubious, but I wouldn't say optimistic, whatever the calibration is between those two. The Mohawks, it's also been a very long battle, and it is entrenched, and I'm highly dubious about amicable resolution with the Mohawks. But we're trying with all. Hope springs eternal. I could argue that it's the best outcome for many people in a lot of ways. I don't think it's a problem. The issue you raised is a problem. We've spoken to a number of the concerns. There will be competition in those regions. Those are very large regions. Western New York is a very large region. Oneidas have done very, very well. So there will be competition. There's also an argument that competition is a good thing here, that there is a synergy. You know, the suggestion, the premise in your question is you'd want to have a casino that is standing alone. Some people argue the opposite, that there's a synergy among co-located casinos. But in any event, we don't anticipate that being a problem.
Having some of the counties that are within those Indian tribes' exclusivity zones, for lack of a better phrase, how much of a sticking point right now is that for them to receive some of the revenue from those Indian-run casinos?
I'm sorry, Nick, I missed the first part of the question.
The counties that are within the Indian tribes' casinos' exclusivity area, with them being able to share some of the revenue in that should the referendum pass, and should some sort of resolution come with these tribes, how much of a sticking point right now is that with the Indian nations?
It's irrelevant to the Indians. It has nothing to do with them. It will come out of the state share. In other words, Nick, they pay the state, let's say 80%. We would give the counties a share from our 80%. So it's irrelevant to the Indians themselves because the money would be coming from the state share. So it doesn't make a difference. It would be a major boon to the counties, however. And I'm going to ask our guest to comment in a moment. But the counties, when you think about it, the way the compacts were first done, you had all of Western New York in a region, but only a couple of the governments got a share of the revenues. And if you happen to be a county in that region, you had no benefit, really, from the casino, tangential jobs, et cetera. But that was a very large region. And we're going back and saying, no, if you are a county in that region, even if you're not the host county, you should have a share of those revenues. And that will come from the state share. So it's not a factor at all in the Indian negotiations. I just want to make sure there's equity that if we resolve the situation with, let's say, the Senecas, the counties will get the funding if the referendum passes. Or if we don't and a commercial enterprise comes in, they're going to get the same percentage of revenues. So it won't make a difference for the counties.
And just as a follow-up, has there been any further discussion of pushing the referendum off for another year beyond 2013 to 2014 when more of the state is going to be voting?
There has been discussion about that, as I mentioned last time, but this plan is we go forward, we do it this year. The problem of pushing it off a year is you're pushing it off a year. And you got the sense in the room yesterday, there's a lot of energy. Tourism is a great economic generator. We need jobs in upstate New York and economic activity in upstate New York like we need oxygen. So putting it off a year, I understand why it would be politically beneficial from a voter turnout. I could make that argument also. My opinion is it's not worth the cost of waiting the year.
Governor, the three regions where the Indians have operations already have significant jobs and economic development activity associated with those casinos right now. Isn't there a strong argument to be made for the three regions that don't have the Indian casinos? And is it realistic to think that the three that already have the Indian operations would be on equal footing toward getting the awards?
Well, what will happen, the three that now have operations, and there are three different circumstances, right, in the three different regions. The North Country region, the Mohawks have one primary facility right up near the Canada border. They really don't have anything in the southern area of the territory. And in terms of revenues, it's nowhere near the magnitude of what we're talking about with the Senecas in Western New York. So they're different situations. But we are, as I said, it's okay. From the state's point of view, we're doing everything we can to honor the contracts and resolve disputes. And if we can resolve the disputes and the contracts are in good standing, that's great. And if that happened in all three regions, then exactly what you're saying would be the case, where there'd only be three existing regions for three proposals, and three regions would be competing for three projects. We would still have the minimum threshold, so every project would have to meet a minimum threshold, but then it would be three projects, three regions. And then, again, depending on what happens with the resolution of the tribes, it would depend on individual regions. At the end of the day, we'll be somewhere between 3 out of 3 and 3 out of 6. My guess is we'll be somewhere in the middle.
Let's see a scenario then where you would outline where all 7 casinos would be up front. I mean, you hear some lawmakers talking that, one, put a referendum to pass, the public would want to know where all 7 are going to be. And then 2, if you're a developer, you might be leery of building one of the first 3, let's say, knowing that, 5 years even, there might be one, 20 miles away somewhere when the others are built.
Here's the problem, Joe. First, to protect against that, we have the 5-year exclusivity period, right? So you will know, if you win this competition, you'll know the lay of the land for the next 5 years. Second, excuse me, the upstate market is driven in large part by the absence of a New York City casino. That is the premise of this plan, right? The premise of this plan is let's use it because it's one of the few big assets we can bring to upstate New York, but it's driven by the absence of a casino in New York City, which would create a separate draw. You would then have to say of the 7, there are none in New York City. I don't believe it is an option to say we're going to develop in New York City and those upstate franchises will be worth as much money. I don't believe that is true. I believe that a New York City franchise would eat at the buffet table of the upstate casinos, so to speak. So I think this maximizes the impact in upstate New York. I understand the argument that says it would be easier, I think marginal, but marginally easier politically if you could say here are all 7. That's probably right, but you would then have to exclude New York City out of the 7, and that would be a separate conversation.
As far as the Senecas are concerned, one of their main issues is the 3 BLT facilities that are there now within their exclusivity area. They claim that that's a breach of their current compact. So do you foresee any changes to the 3 BLT facilities there? And also, the Senecas have talked about having a Rochester casino because that too falls within their exclusivity area.
Well, yeah, and my point with the Senecas is, and I don't want to litigate it with you, but my basic point is, we can either honor the contract or not. You have an exclusivity zone if the contract is in full force and effect. You can't have the benefits of the contract without the burdens of the contract. Right now, they're not paying under the contract. So my position is if you're not paying the state under the contract, then you don't get the benefits of the contract. So they don't have an exclusivity zone if they're not paying, right, at the end of the day. Contracts require a mutuality. And that's what we're working through. This is, as I said, it's been a dispute that's gone on for many, many years. It's complex. We're working very hard to settle it. We'll settle it or not. If we settle it, then I'll honor my side of the bargain. They have an exclusivity zone. They want to site in that exclusivity zone. That's within the contract. If we don't settle, we're going to bid that region, period. Let me pause for a moment. I should have done this earlier. And let me ask our guests to say a few words about this proposal, because, again, it has major consequences for the state as a whole. And let's start with Heather Bruschetti from the Business Council.
Thank you, Governor, and thanks for having me. I thought actually Mario was going ahead of me, so I'm glad to be first. I just wanted to say that, the Business Council is the state's largest private sector employer association, and our primary interest is in growing jobs in New York. Yesterday, we participated in the Tourism Summit, and we're very pleased to see the state focusing on tourism as a job creation engine. And I view this proposal as a logical component. It's very consistent with the focus on tourism and upstate job growth, and also the recognition that getting some of the tourist visitors to New York, to upstate, will positively benefit the upstate economy. Very excited to see this move forward. For years, there's been conversations about casino proposals or destination resorts in upstate, and we're very pleased to see this as a first step forward, and will support the administration in trying to see this proposal come to fruition.
Thank you very much. Mario Salento, New York State AFL-CIO.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Heather. We've been talking about trying to address the issue of job creation and generating revenue in this state for many, many years. And with these casino gaming facilities, we finally have a way to address both of those issues on a long-term basis. And that's really the key here, a long-term basis. And I'm confident that we'll be able to address them in that manner, because I really am confident that we'll be able to create the jobs, and to maintain and service and build these facilities with union jobs, with good-paying jobs, good middle-class jobs. And we have to keep in mind, we're talking about long-term. When you have good-paying jobs with benefits, you're able to, in fact, support yourselves and your families for years to come. And what you want is you want these jobs to be attractive and viable each generation, so that you have some continuity, so that you're able to support yourself and your family, and then when this generation is ready to retire, the next generation comes in, and they know that they can support themselves and their families. As a result of that, these men and women stay in our state. They work in our state because they know they have viable alternatives to work here. When you have good-paying jobs throughout the state, you also help the local communities, because when you make a good living, as these jobs will, these jobs will create, you're able to put that money right back into the local communities, right back into the local businesses. You can take your family out to dinner. You can go to the movies. You can do all the things that you want to do with a good-paying job. And the last thing is, as you have a job that you support yourself and your family with good-paying, high-quality jobs, you pay taxes on those jobs. Those jobs allow us to build the local tax base across the state in a way that we have not been able to do for generations. And that helps the public sector and the private sector. And that's why this is so very important. Because remember, you're creating an industry here, and when you have that opportunity at the very beginning, you're creating a long-term strategy for success. You can have low-wage, minimum-wage jobs. There's a place for that in our economy. But those would be Band-Aids on the problems that the governor is trying to solve here today. We're talking about long-term solutions to very real problems, and we're finally on the road to doing that. Thank you very much, Governor.
Thank you, Mario. Steve Aquario from the Counties Association.
Thank you, Governor. I'd like to thank you, Governor, for including New York's regional governments, the counties of New York State, as part of this discussion. I'd also like to add that what we're dealing with here are sovereign nations. That the Native American tribes that are in our state are, in fact, sovereign nations. And the fact that this discussion of state-sponsored casino gaming interacting with the sovereign nations is a potential way to bring about what's been a long-standing and vexing problem confronting the local governments, the state, and the Native American tribes. So I remain hopeful that the current discussions, the plan presented by the governor today will be taken very seriously by the state legislature. We will work with the state legislature to help implement the proposals advanced by the governor today. The regional economic development councils that have been used by Governor Cuomo and the state legislature around this state are an effort to promote the upstate economy, which has been struggling. We came into the recession late in 2008 compared to the nation. We've stayed in the recession later than most states, but this is yet another aspect of the state and the governor leading the state out of this recession, combining it with the tourism summit that was held yesterday and historic investment of over $60 million in tourism. This is preparing the state, preparing the people of the state for what potentially might be coming with respect to a new industry, and that industry is welcome news in upstate New York. So, Governor, thank you for your leadership on this issue, on this very important and complicated situation.
Thank you, Steve. And just pull the lens back a little bit on this proposal. What is the big picture here? Upstate New York has serious problems. You don't feel it as much in the Capital District region, frankly, because you have the government here, you have nanotech here, which has been an extraordinary success, and in some ways unique to the Capital District region. Upstate New York is struggling. Upstate New York has been struggling for multiple generations. Western New York has been declining for decades and decades. We need to do something to help upstate New York. It has to be dramatic, it has to be big, and we're very good at finding reasons not to act. there's always a reason not to act. There's always a risk, there's always a potential. Doing nothing is no longer an alternative, because we've been doing nothing for a long time. And you can chart the graph of doing nothing, and that line goes straight down. It goes population decline, it goes young people leaving upstate New York, it goes tax revenues going down, jobs going down. We've done that. We've done that for many, many, many years. And you've been writing the story for many, many, many years. If you want tomorrow to be different than yesterday, then do something different. Do something different. This is a big idea that we believe could bring economic energy to upstate New York that needs it desperately. And that's what we're talking about. I'm sorry.
Along those lines, you put out 80, 10, 10, the breakdown of the revenue. Last time we talked about possibly flat taxes, taxing the casinos. When you look at other regions and how many jobs it's created, have you looked at possibly how much money this could bring into the state, and have you thought about how to tax the casinos?
We have part of it is we're going to let the market decide. I want to see, let's ask the projects, what is your best proposal to the state, right? We could either say up front, we could dictate the numbers, or use the competitive process and use the private market to set the numbers. And this proposal anticipates saying to the bidders, you tell me how much you'll pay the state.
You said earlier in your remarks that racinos are, in many ways, basically casinos now. For those of us who haven't been studying the fine points of this for a long time, what is the basic difference between a racino and the casinos?
Basically, table games are not permitted at what we would call racinos. They are at casinos. This is with live action betting as opposed to electronic machines. Racinos are purely electronic machines.
But the sophistication of the electronic machines has changed dramatically over the years, so it's become a much more enticing enterprise. Jesse?
There's a mayor's race in the city this year. If you do push the referendum this year, how do you sell that to city voters who aren't going to see a casino anytime soon?
Well, that is, as we were discussing before, there is this feeling that this is not the best political environment for this proposal on the ballot. I could argue that. I think we say to New York City voters, look, the casinos are not going to be located in New York City. To the extent Genting, the Racino in Queens, you don't count the Racino in Queens, but we're not going to set casinos in New York City, but the state is going to get significant revenue for education aid and for property tax relief, and a big piece of the state's education aid goes to New York City. So if you're interested in more funding for education in New York City, this is a proposal that you would be interested in.
Governor, you said
In connection with the negotiations for the Oneidas, did they come to you with this proposal to purchase exclusivity? And is it your position that you would prefer to resolve issues with the Indian nations so that their counties or their regions are taken off the table, and that there are only 3 regions for you to offer to bidders?
I don't know who went to who. My guess is I went to them, or we, the collective we, went to them on the proposal. The Oneidas have a number of issues, as you well know, better than I, frankly. Land claim issues with Oneida County, Madison County. They've gone on for many years. There's been ongoing litigation. The litigation I was familiar with when I was the Attorney General. But it's been going on for many, many years. Settling the land claims is in everyone's interest. If we could put together settling the land claims and coming up with an agreement on the casino rights in a region, and if we could come up with a sort of collective settlement of all of the above, I think that's in everyone's best interest. The Oneidas would have closure. They'd have exclusivity. Oneida County and Madison County would have closure on the land issues. They'd also have an additional revenue stream. So I think resolution of these issues is in everyone's best interest. Same with the Senecas, by the way, and same with the St. Regis Mohawk. Now, again, it gets very complicated very fast, and you run into a lot of history, and you run into a lot of emotion, but we're giving it our best try.
So whether or not you settle the dispute with the Senecas, and if you don't, then a commercial casino could go there. Either way, under either scenario, all counties within that exclusivity zone would be eligible for this revenue sharing.
Yes. Which is a major difference than where we are now.
And so that goes to those municipalities that now are supposed to be getting.
Hold them harmless, and they may get more, depends on the formula, but the other counties' share would come out of the state pot, and it would not dilute what goes to the current recipients.
And do you see any current racinos having to close down that they could not compete with this model?
Look, you now have, take one of the most successful casinos we have in the state, is Turning Stone Casino, operated by the Oneidas. You have a Racino just a few miles away that is operating. So that's what I said. This business doesn't work. The traditional sense is there's one, and if there's a second, it's necessarily depleting and a negative. That's not how this business works. You'll often see clustered casinos. So, no, I don't think one is the enemy of the other.
How does your plan treat Long Island and the northern suburbs of the city? Would they be part of that 5-year ban that you wouldn't see casinos downstate?
Yes.
Governor, New York State is late to the dance on this. I mean, as you referenced, most states around us already have had these for a long time. And indeed, Atlantic City has been struggling apparently because of the increased competition. Any concern that these projections are unduly rosy?
We may be late to the dance, but you just wait till we get out on the floor. Nobody moves the way New York moves. So, no, I think we've taken into account the adjustment in the overall market. And you could say New York should have moved earlier, which I believe is true, by the way. Because you look at all the neighboring states, much of the revenue that the neighboring states are getting is coming from New York. I also believe what we did with the Racinos was bad policy and bad practice by the state. We gave out very valuable franchises with very little rhyme or reason, very little regulation, and very little uniformity. And a lot of people made a lot of money over the years, and I don't think the taxpayers got their due. So I think this is one of the, when we talk about the chronic illness of state government dysfunction, I think this is one of the symptoms.
What about the argument, and I'm sure you've heard it, the criticism that the casinos...
There are many arguments and much criticism, yes.
The casinos bring blight and ruin people's lives, and areas around it are decimated because of all the people going broke, if you will. Those arguments. What do you say to those?
Yeah, well, that's how I began. It's not a question of casinos or no casinos. We have casinos. We have 17 in the state right now, today, all around us. We're talking about adding another 3. So it's not like we're going to an endeavor that we haven't been to before. We are in denial about it. We haven't acknowledged it, but we're there now.
That if you don't cut these deals with the tribes, they're going to be major players financially in funding anti-referendum efforts?
If they are not part of it, I'm sure they're going to oppose it, Tom. Worry, no, but I mean, is it a factor? Yes.
And your plan? Sorry, I didn't see that. Does it no longer call for gaming commission to select the actual operators?
We have a selection committee, which would not be the gaming committee, it would be temporary. The gaming commission is an ongoing regulatory body more than anything. Under this proposal, we have a selection committee that is temporary, does just the selection. They are real estate experts, they are finance experts, they are experts at evaluating competing complicated real estate proposals, which is what this is. And they would come in, make this selection, and move on in life.
You've been very critical of the way, just one more, you've been very critical of the way in the past about how the takeout rates were set for the VLT parlors, sort of a hodgepodge system, but you're not coming up with an exact tax rate for these commercial casinos.
I think we could do better with, as an opening bid, so to speak, let's use the competitive process. Who will pay us more?
But do you see going low, trying to compete with Vegas and Atlantic City on taxes, or as high as you are with the VLTs now?
Oh, no, we want as high as we can get on the taxes. Now, the reason these are going to be complicated proposals to evaluate, and we talked about the financial advisor, you have an initial franchise fee, which someone's going to say, I'll pay $50 million to walk into the state. You have a total development economic impact. I'm going to spend $500 million to build the actual facility. That's the jobs, that's the economic impact for the region. And then how many jobs, local support, et cetera. And then what tax rate do they propose on top of that? I think we have an asset to sell. I think you're going to get, the competition is going to be hot. And I think we do better off making the tax rate one of the bid features, and let's use the market to our benefit.
How do you get legislative approval, I mean, within the next 5-6 weeks here, when lawmakers are not going to know if their district's going to get a casino or another one? With that uncertainty, is it going to be difficult to sell them on this plan?
If you were saying that a legislator's only going to act if they know they get one in their backyard, that might be a factor. I don't think that would be a prudent basis for decision by a legislator, and I don't think that's how they're going to decide. I think the upstate legislators have to say, this is the best opportunity we've had for upstate New York in decades. And if we don't do this, then what? You know, how many times can we give the speech or write the story of the decline of upstate New York, right? We're on the third generation of people giving the speech and writing the story. So from an upstate legislator's point of view, what do you have that is better than this? And it's not just about your backyard. It's about an economic opportunity for upstate New York. It's better for the state. It's more revenue for the state. It's better for education. It's more funding for education statewide. So I think it is for upstate legislators a no-brainer. We then discussed with Jesse, well, if you're from downstate, you don't get a casino. You don't get a casino, but you get the money. And by the way, as we heard, some people would argue, I don't want a casino near me. All right, well then you're going to get the revenues from the upstate casinos going to education, a major share of which goes to New York City. So if you're a legislator from New York City and you care about education and you want more education funding, which is the #1 concern of New York City legislators, as you know, then upstate casinos, the revenue is going to be above the formula for education. You want more funding for education? You want to go above the state formula? Vote for casinos. So whether it's upstate or downstate, I think clearly the equities are in favor of it, and it's not about your own backyard.
So is your goal then to have an agreement with the tribes before the session ends, so that you would be able to narrow down essentially?
Yes, because it is what it is, Joe. We've had these conversations for years. I've had these conversations for weeks. The answer at one point is either yes or no. I'm a patient person. I'll talk as long as you want to talk. But at one point, the decision factors aren't going to change. And we are there in all three of these situations. The Senecas have a decision to make. The Oneidas have a decision to make. The Mohawks have a decision to make. It's the same decision factors today as they're going to be in 9 months. For the legislation to work, we need certainty and we need closure. And we're going to need to know what we're doing in those regions.
So it's got to be clear, if at the end of the session, you don't have an agreement, say, with the Senate, because that question mark on the map, that goes away and that becomes a region that will then be eligible for commercial.
Well, look, in November, Tom, I think you have to say to the voters of Western New York, this is what you're voting on. You're either voting on a continuation of the Seneca Compact with revenues now for the individual counties, or you're voting for a casino on top of what the Senecas have. I think they need to know.
I mean, that is what you're saying for the end.
Yes.
Who will appoint the selection committee?
We're discussing about, that's one of the issues we're discussing. I want to keep the legislature out of the, certainly controlling the selection process. And we can either come up with a process or we can just select individuals. Rather than come up with a process, just cut to the chase and find individuals. And that's one of the issues we're still working through.
On Seneca's, you're in binding arbitration. Is there a concern that the arbitrators could say that this is an exclusive territory for the Senecas and thus would take that region out of your proposal?
Is that a matter before the arbitrators, do you know?
If we were to settle with the Seneca, the arbitration would be terminated.
Right, but if you don't settle, an arbitration comes in, it could deem that an exclusive zone, right?
The exclusivity at issue is not the existence of the Racinos there, it's the degree to the types of games they can have
Like
and
table
how they
games,
present
could-
themselves,
they could
or anything else. But, you know, arbitrators have some broad abilities.
The real issue with the arbitration is the money penalty, the loss, the damages to the Senecas, if any, by the operation of the Racinos. And should the Racinos have limited activity if the arbitrators believe it's actually infringing on the exclusivity of the Senecas?
You didn't indicate the arbitration decision, or getting any negotiation. An arbitration decision would come before the end of session.
You know, Tom, we don't have good information one way or the other.
Assuming this passes the legislature this year and the referendum, the amendment passes the legislature this session, are you willing to do any kind of public awareness campaigns or any kind of campaigning to get this passed with the voters this fall?
But yeah, no, I would, part of it would be explaining this to the voters of New York, and why our thinking and our rationale, why it should go forward, certainly is going to be part of it. I don't know that you can, I don't know the rules and the law, Glenn, on how the state participates in a referendum.
You said that they want a Rochester casino as part of any agreement?
No, we have not had that conversation.
On another topic, just one.
I have not had that conversation, Joe, I should say. Have you heard that?
There have been proposals but not a direct part of any of our discussions.
On another topic, I want to get your reaction to the news yesterday about all the different lawmakers that were caught on the wiretaps with former Senator Huntley, and whether or not you think that Jacob is doing all that it can, is making a difference at all in the alleged problems and corruption and all that.
Yeah, different agencies do different things. JCOPE was never designed to be the investigatory prosecutorial agency, right? JCOPE was not supposed to be doing the job of the U.S. attorneys or the district attorneys. That's not what JCOPE is all about. And as I said yesterday, we discussed this yesterday after the summit, to me, the relationship between citizens and the citizens of New York and their government is very important. A big part of what the past 2.5 years has been about for me, a little less than 2.5 years, is restoring the relationship, restoring the trust between people and the government. Why? Because for many years, the story of Albany was a story of dysfunction, a story of waste, a story of disconnect from the people in the state. So restoring the trust, primarily about function and competence, was very important. Because if the people don't believe in the government, then literally it limits the power of the government. If people don't believe what your newspaper says is true, then it fundamentally impacts the value of the publication, right? And the value of the exercise. So the trust is very important. And we've worked very hard over the past 2.5 years to restore that trust budgets on time, we're passing laws, we're not gridlock, et cetera. This poses a new set of issues, which is really questioning the trust in terms of integrity of legislative officials. Now, it's a different branch of government. I understand that. I respect the different branches of government. I'm the executive. These are not my appointees. These are people who are independently elected by the people to serve their district. And everybody's innocent until proven guilty. I get all of that. At the same time, I think we should use this situation as an opportunity to reevaluate the system and find ways to improve the system. Because there are ways to improve the system. Anyone who says, well, this is the best possible system we could have, there's nothing we could do to make this system any better. I think that's delusional, okay? So let's use this opportunity to improve the system. And then let's say to the people of the state of New York, we understand that we read the newspaper also, we heard about the allegations of corruption, and we use the opportunity to make the system better. And your trust is important, and we've reformed the system. And I've set forth a comprehensive package of reforms that I believe does just that. Talking from bribery statutes to additional laws, scheme to defraud, that says to the public, A, we're working to make the system better, and we heard and we responded. And at the same time, it's going to make the system better. So that's the package of proposals I put forth. I think it's an opportunity for the state to do it. I think it would be a missed opportunity if the state doesn't do it. I also, as governor, have powers that are within my control. I think it would be an unacceptable outcome to end this session without addressing the public trust issue and without taking actions to restore the public trust. And that's what I've said to the legislators publicly, and that's what I've said privately, and that's what I intend to do.
Governor, on the topic of Jacob, what's your reaction today to the report that lawmakers want to heavily edit the Vito Lopez report from the commission, and do you believe the full report should be released either by the LEC or by Jacob?
You know, Nick, I don't know. I didn't see the stories, and it's not my place to comment.
Governor, will the casinos support breeders, horsemen, or racing persons at all?
The casinos that are done in combination or concert or connection with a track would, the way Racinos are. But not one that is freestanding and has no connection, no.
So do you envision live table gaming going to some of the racetracks?
You will have, I envision many of the current Racinos competing to become a casino.
So those are the only ones that would potentially
Yes.
support?
Governor, are you still willing to allow the binding arbitration law to expire if there's no deal before the end of June? And based on your discussions with lawmakers, with unions, et cetera, I mean, do you think there's going to be a resolution before June 30th?
I think there will be a resolution before June 30th. You're putting two issues together. One is I think it's important that we also take this moment, this opportunity to come up with a financial restructuring mechanism for local governments that are financially distressed, which ties into this, the topic of today. But you have many local governments, cities, counties that are under financial distress, that have to make hard decisions. We know about hard decisions. We've made a few ourselves over the past couple of years. And the state can be, I believe, of help to some of those local governments. So setting up that financial restructuring panel, I believe, is part of the binding arbitration process writ large. We're making good progress on that. We've had a number of meetings, a number of discussions. We've been talking to the counties. We've been talking about two labor unions. And I think we're making good progress on that financial restructuring panel. And we'll have more to say in the near future. On the binding arbitration law, I believe we're also making good progress on those conversations, and that will be concluded by the end of session.
Are lawmakers open to allowing that restructuring board participate or act as an alternative to the binding arbitration process as you proposed?
There's been an openness and a receptivity. You know, the devil is in the details, and I think they want to see how we work it through. But yes, there's been an openness and a receptivity because, again, at one point, people get that you have to do something, right? I'm trying to change the attitude of there's always a reason to do nothing, which this state has done for many, many years. The old expression in Washington used to be, a legislator who does nothing wrong, okay? I'm trying to change that attitude and change that culture by saying we have to do something, right? We have to go from the culture that said doing nothing, we do nothing wrong, to we have to do something, especially when you get to a situation like the upstate economy or upstate cities, where doing nothing and just factoring out that downward trajectory takes you to a cliff. And let's recognize that, and let's change the culture and the attitude from coming up with reasons not to act and politics and fighting and pointing fingers to how do we actually do something and get to yes and get positive. And on the financial restructuring of cities, it's the same thing. They have tough issues. I've been talking about consolidations and mergers and fundamental restructurings till I'm blue in the face. I started as Attorney General. I understand the local politics, and they're having trouble getting there. Well, let the state come in and help. And I think people get that. So yes, there's an openness and there's a receptivity.
Governor, with all the scandals that have been swirling around, especially this week, does it slow things down in terms of getting a lot of your agenda done? I mean, you have a full plate of things you want to finish by June. Is this good, bad, or indifferent in terms of that?
Only if you let it, Rick. I'm not going to let it. I think we have to do two things at once. You have to address the public concerns, and you have to address the reality that these allegations bring forth. And that's my reform package, and it is an aggressive reform package, and it goes places we've never gone before, and I am insistent on it. And if the legislature won't do it, I'll find other ways to do it, okay? So we have to do that on track A. But track B is we have to run the state, and we have to create jobs, and we have to educate children, and we have to do economic development, and we have to do that every day. So we're here today putting forth the casino proposal. We're going to have more proposals to make next week. And then there's plenty of time on the clock for the legislators to do what they're supposed to do, which is evaluate the proposals. Let's work together in good faith and try to come up with a resolution. Okay? Thank you very much.